Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. My name is Tarmack. I'm here with a couple of guests to talk about some wonderful DMCA and all kinds of other shenanigans on YouTube. So let's get some introductions done and out of the way. First up, we've got Mr. SidAlpha, which you may have seen has been having some interesting troubles of late. Sid, give us a quick little synopsis of who you are and what you do.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. I am a YouTuber. Most of my content concentrates around video game news, reviews, and first impressions. And yeah, there has been quite a bit of stuff floating around my channel recently. It's been making me exceptionally busy, but that is mainly what I try to concentrate on is PC gaming in general.
PattyJack, you're up.
Yo, so I kind of do PC stuff as well. I cover a lot of games, mostly first impressions stuff. I do a lot of Elder Scrolls content as well. And of course, I will cover industry news, anything to do with copyright claims, DMCAs, all that good stuff, because, you know, it does affect everyone. Yeah, so I'll play a variety of things, usually give my opinion on them. Sometimes people agree, usually they don't. But, you know, I keep going with the flow. So, yeah.
So I want to start talking about a lot of the copyright claim stuff that we're dealing with. And that's really the crux of why I wanted to have a chat with both of you guys. Because in the time that I've been doing YouTube videos, you know, we're at a bit over 5 years now, and I've had all kinds of things from Content ID claims and down to DMCA takedowns, anything and everything in between. And so again, I want to go back to SidAlpha because your issues most recently have been rather notable and a little bit on the scary side for a lot of us that like to do YouTube video content. So you want to give a quick synopsis of the Dentola Studios bit, because that's what started this whole thing.
Yeah, I'd gotten wind from a follower of mine that posted a message to me on Facebook about this company, Dentola Studios, and said, "I'm pretty sure these guys are digital homicide. Maybe you should check them out." I scoffed a little at first, but then I sat back and thought about it. I was like, well, it's not going to do any harm just to check at least. And I came across this company that had posted 11 games on the Steam Greenlight system all on the same day, and 6 of them were still up at the time that I found it. And I started checking through the comments and everything and found out that these guys were up to the usual shenanigans of your typical asset flipper. They were deleting comments or negative comments as fast as they would come in. And they were actual blatant asset flips. I actually managed to find every single one of the games they had posted on the Unity Asset Store. And so I did a video and outlined everything that I had found and showed links for citation of everything that I had found on the Unity store and everything in regards to that. And the developer proceeded to do some pretty interesting things. He, of course, started deleting all of my comments on his Greenlight page as fast as they came up, which came into a funny little game of like whack-a-mole, where I was just messing with him. It was like, how many comments can I get posted onto his different pages at the same time, see how quickly they would disappear. But that got boring after a while, so I stopped. And he went through several name changes to try and render the links that I had posted in my video so they would no longer work. And so I ended up posting a link that was numerical. And so all the name changing that he attempted did no good whatsoever. And that was when he finally resorted on the DMCA strike, because he couldn't find any other way to shut me up. So that was his last option.
So now I've had one DMCA takedown in my history, and to be fair, and I should say, to be fair, it was sort of legitimate. Not exactly. I got a hold of an early copy of Bloodborne, and I was doing it was basically Let's Play sort of content. It was terrible, awful, because I am no good at that type of video.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it up before the game came out, and so they hit the channel with a strike. And then after the game came out, there were a whole bunch of other channels that had the same kind of content still online. So I fought the strike, and they took it down after that point. The reason I mentioned it is it's very interesting how it's used primarily as a silencing mechanic more than anything else, right? So both From Software, who did the strike against me, and Dentola on your side, they were doing it because they didn't want the video there. It had nothing to do with protecting their copyright, in any meaningful sort of way.
No, it's very much
it was to silence things.
Yeah, it's very much in this instance. In a lot of these instances, they weaponize the DMCA system to try and silence criticism. And they do this because they're afraid. They're afraid that we'll cut into their bottom line. And in this particular instance with Dentola Studios, I did not use any of their footage. I did not use any of their gameplay in the video. I used snips from the Steam Greenlight storefront, and I used videos from the original game developers on the Unity Asset Store. So it wasn't even their reposted video clips. It's actually interesting to note that Dentola Studios themselves have had 2 of those games on the Greenlight system DMCA'd by the original developers. And so this was a pure instance of my not even using any of their content. This was purely a gag tactic. But a lot of companies, the DMCA system is there to protect copyright. It's there to protect your intellectual property, and it's rightly there for a reason. But this is what all these asset flippers and these duplicitous developers use as a weapon to try and shut people up. Digital Homicide tried it with Jim Sterling, Dentola Studios, and the developers of Fur Fun have tried it with me. And it happens all over the place, all the time.
It's actually kind of interesting because you've kind of changed my mind about the one DMCA I've ever received on my channel too, which was from LucasArts a few years ago. Before, this was like a month before they went bankrupt or whatever, and before they stopped being a company, so I could barely even dispute it, or I probably could have. I didn't know at the time. What happened was I was talking about this leak that happened about some Star Wars Battlefront 3 stuff back before EA had the licenses or anything, obviously. And of course, I didn't show any of the footage of the leak or anything. I was just playing some Battlefront 2 footage in the background or whatever. And they ended up silencing that one while they didn't do anything but say the articles on GameSpot and stuff. And I never really thought about it as a silencing tactic, but that actually kind of seems like what it might have been. And I never thought about it like that before.
Yeah, and the reason why they do this is because they can get away with it. Nobody has fought back. Nobody has actually taken these companies to court because this is very illegal. It is perjury when they file false claims like this. But it's not something that the government will ever take it upon itself to go after someone. You have to sue them for it, basically. And so typically what will happen with the vast majority of these DMCA strikes is you will see it show up on your channel, your video gets taken down, and you file a counterclaim. They have a 2 weeks basically to respond. And if they don't, then it rolls off and your video goes back, the strike gets removed, and life goes on.
Right. And that's a restriction within the DMCA itself. So what we're talking about here, this is in the United States. I want to say it was 1998, I believe. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act was a wonderful, terrible thing that came out of a lot of the old Napster era, and this was a big deal as far as content owners wanting to make sure that they could get the money from whoever it was that was pirating their stuff. And so, as a part of the DMCA and how all of this stuff works, is if a copyright owner sends a message to some place online that happens to have infringing content. So this could be, it could be Dropbox, it could be YouTube, it could be, just a website that happens to be hosted by some web hosting company. And you send a message saying, I own that stuff, you're required to take it down. They have to take it down expediently, I guess is the word, if I recall correctly, that they used.
Yes.
And then the person who had their content taken down can file a counterclaim. And the counterclaim, it has to be actioned within 10 to 14 business days. So taking the claim or taking the content down is immediate. Putting it back up is 3 weeks-ish. And it turns into a real mess because as the content creator side, we're always dealing with these long sort of wait times, right? You want to file that claim immediately to try and get your stuff back up because what the hell? I followed the rules. I did everything I was supposed to, and it's still going to be quite a while before they actually put your stuff back online again, as far as the strikes go.
Yeah, and they're under no obligation whatsoever to reverse any of those decisions any sooner. And in fact, it goes against their interests to do so. So they'll ignore it and let the video stay down for as long as humanly possible, because the longer that video's down, the greater the chance they'll be able to get away with whatever it is they're trying to do, whether it be push a game through green light or squeeze some extra sales out of a game. There are a lot of different things that they'll silence a video for.
It kind of baffles me that that mindset is still there, though, considering that pretty well every time that's happened on any large scale, I'm sure it happens on like with way smaller channels, and we never hear about it because they don't really make a big stink about it. But anytime anyone does, it feels like it just harms the developer more than anything.
More often than not, it will, because there's one thing that this is the beautiful thing about the games industry is the consumers and the people that play games. They don't they feel a connection to the content creators, the people that are providing them with video and game footage before games came out, uh, reviews of games to let them know whether a game is good or bad or anything like that. They feel a real, sometimes visceral connection to these people, us, I should say. And if one of these games developers tries and screws with us in that sort of fashion, they a lot of times will get a lot more upset than we will. And they can be a very powerful driving force for spreading out the knowledge and awareness that these developers are doing this, because developers that are willing to silence criticism, that are willing to act in such a way, are not developers that people are wanting to give money to.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm curious. I assume that the answer is yes in both cases, but um, you've both also had content ID matches, I would imagine, as well, and probably I would hazard a guess more frequently than the strike side of the house.
Oh, absolutely. I
All the
think I
time.
have 5 on my channel right now.
I probably got about 30 or 40.
Yeah, that's all
Wow.
music related.
Mine are all actually mostly from EA. A few years ago, they went through a whole phase where they went through everyone's YouTube channel, or like the majority of them, who uploaded, I think it was specifically Battlefield 3 footage, and they basically just claimed all my videos. Anything that had Battlefield 3 in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's quite remarkably terrible. Now, have you gone and appealed any of those or tried to fight those?
I have not, because honestly, they're just not getting any more views anyways, and it wasn't a big deal to me. Back then, I was super scared because I was a lot younger too, and I was like, well, if I appeal it, are they going to take me to court? Obviously, they're not going to, but I had no idea back then, so they're still there. But aside from that, I still get random ones every now and then. I got one from Geek and Sundry the other week, so
Cool.
that was interesting. And that was because I uploaded some trailer footage of, well, what was the game? I can't even remember what trailer it was for, but yeah, it was some trailer. Oh, it was for Battlefront. And yeah, for some reason, their bot, whatever they're using for YouTube, claimed that as their content. Obviously, it wasn't. So I ended up appealing that one and contacting them directly. Thankfully, they got it sorted out within a day. Other than that, though, I still will get the occasional one from like Activision or something and other things like that.
Yeah,
Right.
it's worth noting for anyone watching that that sort of thing, the content ID system is a completely different beast. It's entirely automated. So there's no person at the other end going, "You mother," and hitting the ban hammer, as it were. No, it's just a system. It's a bot, and a lot of the times when I've received those on my videos, I just post a counter notification and say, "Hey, I believe this is fair use." Da da da. And more often than not, they'll get cleared. A few companies like Nintendo and a few others are absolute asses about every bit of it, and they refuse to allow any of their content to be monetized. But for the most part,
Right.
companies are extremely understanding.
It helped.
I've had a lot of those. Yeah. So the thing about content ID, as you mentioned, is that it is entirely automatic, and it is something that your content creator, say game developer, right? Let's pick Nintendo because I love to talk about Nintendo and how well they do copyright on YouTube. Um, they'll upload a cutscene from a video game. They'll upload a trailer, they'll upload music tracks and things into the YouTube system, and it will auto match that content against all kinds of other content across the platform. So very recently, right after they had done their wonderful Nintendo Treehouse presentation or whatever it was in January, I did a news wrap-up video of that, and I used a bunch of footage from it. And historically, I've avoided using Nintendo footage because they're very heavy-handed about this. They actually have their own YouTube network, and they take monetization from people for these things. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to play this game, and I'm going to try and fight this, and let's see what happens. They issued, I want to say it was 4 or 5 different content ID matches against my channel for it. And it only just recently did I have the last one fall off. So they put the content ID match on there. That stops any kind of monetization. It lets them see all the stats for the video and all that kind of wonderful stuff. I filed the appeal. They canceled it immediately, denying the appeal. And I had to file, the dispute. You've got to keep the order of operations here. They denied my dispute immediately. I filed an appeal, which is, there's a 30-day turnaround time. The only way for them to keep that active is they have to actually sue me. And they just let the timer run out on all of the claims there. Which is just unbelievably frustrating because you know that they're doing this on purpose, right? It's just...
Oh, absolutely. Nintendo is the worst when it comes to this. It actually boggles my mind because with the Switch coming out, I'm seeing all of these YouTubers freaking out. Oh, look at the Switch. It's so wonderful. And Zelda. And it's like, you guys, you're just feeding this beast that will bite your hand as soon as you reach it out. They care nothing for you or your content. Why are you supporting them? It boggles my mind. I don't get it. But, you know, a lot of people get excited about the new Zelda game and they have fun with it, so they can go right ahead. But me, I refuse to cover anything Nintendo related on my channel anymore.
If I do,
Yeah.
I just throw up some footage of something that rhymes with whatever the topic I'm using, and then I'll talk about it freely. But other than that, like, I don't cover Nintendo stuff in general anyways. I've never really been a big fan of their consoles and stuff. They're fine consoles, don't get me wrong. It's not my type of thing. But yeah, it is a deterrent from me even wanting to ever talk about them, to be entirely honest.
So, Sid, you said most of yours are audio.
Yeah.
Is that songs from like Audio Micro or those kinds of things?
They're mostly in-game music, or every once in a while I'll put you know, a humorous bit of song or something over a review section when I would showcase bugs or glitches within a game or something like that, and those would immediately get content ID'd. And it's, you know, the musical industry, oh man, the musical industry is exceptionally vociferously fierce when it comes to maintaining their copyright of their music, and they don't give a damn whether it's fair use or not. It's theirs, they want it, and there's no arguing with them on it.
It happens a lot with indie games, I've noticed, because a lot of indie developers will contract out like independent music producers and other things like that too. So if I'm doing like a first impressions, quite often what'll happen is they I'll get like a claim on my video from the producer of that music that they used in game. And yeah, so I have to go through and dispute that. Usually it goes fine. A couple times I just haven't even bothered because by the time it happens, I don't really get any more views on the video.
Yeah, one thing, probably my most favorite one was my state of the game video for Everspace. It actually, they sent me a press kit that included a section of a trailer, which I used in my video. The music from that trailer that they sent me got content ID claimed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of these companies, they've gotten to the size where there are no, it's the whole left hand talking to the right hand thing, right? The group within that company that is responsible for making sure this stuff is claimed is not the same as the PR group, because the PR group, they want you to put that content in there. They want that stuff to be on YouTube. But the guy that's responsible for making sure that they're not getting, you know, their content stolen is a totally different person. So yeah, it turns into a real mess.
That happens with every industry too. So it's nothing new, but it does go back to like whatever industry you're in, you're always going to get people that don't necessarily work together. And when you have a system like this, the unfortunate part is that it can be not even always taken advantage of, but what can happen is little things can slip through the cracks like that when they really shouldn't. And I don't know whether to blame that on the company themselves or the system that's in place for it.
So the other thing that I wanted to bring up with this whole copyright claim thing, and I don't know if either of you guys have dealt with this all that much. I used to. It's a lot less of a problem now, but there are also a significant number of false flags in Content ID because of YouTube networks. So I'll throw an example out here. I record a video. Let's say it's Skyrim, and I'm going to record, well, maybe Skyrim's a bad example because you can move your camera right off the hop. Let's say it's a game where you've got a cutscene, right? Game developer has not claimed that cutscene, and I put up a video that has that cutscene in it. If I'm in a shady YouTube network, Music Nations comes to mind because they've done this to me. They may claim all of my video footage in their Content ID system. Now, where this normally wouldn't be a problem until SidAlpha or PattyJack goes and makes a video of the same game with the same cutscene, and then you get a Content ID match from my YouTube network, which is not the owner of that footage at all, but just because they happen to figure they could just claim all of the content, right? This sort of fire and forget system has caused a lot of problems, and it's an absolute mess. It really, like, I don't understand how YouTube is sitting back and thinking this is working as intended. It is a phenomenal amount of stress to the people that are making these videos.
It's very much a out of sight, out of mind issue for them. They have automated systems in place to be able to handle all of this. And they've done this so they don't have to touch it. They don't have to look at it. And because of that, they don't see any of this. They don't have any content. They don't have any contact with their content creators. They don't have any contact with the viewers, except for, like, I think they just posted uh, a stupid questionnaire. I don't know if you guys have seen that yet or not. I actually went through and filled it out. And what are the biggest concerns you have on YouTube and all this ridiculous nonsense? It was about as impersonal and
Your patience is important to us.
yeah, it was basically, it was the questionnaire version of an automated messaging system, and it was horrible.
Ugh.
And so every page is like Content ID, DMCA, everything that every YouTube content creator has to deal with on a daily basis that they just don't see and they don't care about. Hopefully they start caring soon, because sooner or later there is going to be a video streaming site that will come along that will give them proper protection as well as proper functionality that will be able to compete with YouTube. And if and when that happens, I can foresee a lot of content creators migrating en masse.
Yeah, that seems like an outcome at some. I mean, Google is really hard to fight, right? They're too big at this point for that to be something that is that near in the future. But we've already seen sort of premium ones kind of spring up. I could easily see Facebook if they manage to fix their the searchability of it. And the same thing with Twitch, right? I mean, Twitch is just you can upload videos, but it's really, really awful because you can't search for the stuff. It's very, very difficult to find something specific that you want, and it tends to be all long form VODs, which are, some people like and some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, because I upload all my videos to VidMe as well, just because I can. This doesn't go towards necessarily DMCA or content claiming, but over the last few days, actually, a bunch of old YouTube animators like Weeble and Sid, they've all gone and started uploading all those videos over to VidMe as well. And it's been a running thing, of course, that animators have been pretty dicked around by YouTube on their ad revenues and a bunch of other things that have been going on as well. So it is interesting to see that maybe at some point there will be a straw that breaks the camel's back. It could be DMCAs. It could be even more Content ID claims and crazy stuff like that.
Well, right now, the only real reason for content creators to stay on YouTube is because, one, it's the biggest it's the biggest block there is. You want to reach the most viewers, then you have to go to YouTube for that form of content. And, its functionality plus all of your viewer base is already there. They're already subscribed. So switching over to a new system, can be scary for some content creators because God knows how many people don't make the transition with you. It could be only you could end up with a fraction of a percentage of the viewers that you had before the move. So a lot of people will start, they'll probably a lot like those artists, they'll start posting and like you're doing now, Patty Jack, where they'll post their videos on both sites. And then hopefully at some point it'll make sense for them to make the transition. And I think we'll see a lot of people doing that.
So I wanted to bridge into a little bit of a discussion on fair use, because all of this stuff about content ID and the DMCA and all of this, these are intended to be punishments and mechanisms for content owners to make sure that they protect their stuff. But within the copyright law, as it were, there is this wonderful little thing that is referred to as fair use, and it is sort of an exemption. You could describe it as to copyright law itself, or to copyright infringement. Now, let me get through this, because I know it can be a little bit boring hearing all legalese nonsense and all that kind of stuff, but it's referred to as an affirmative defense. And so what that means is you have to actually be sued for copyright infringement for fair use to actually apply. That said, a lot of places online will actually, they'll apply the fair use kind of concepts because it's important to them. They don't want somebody to be able to abuse that privilege of DMCA takedowns and things like that. So YouTube has some element of fair use protection, but it's not the legal, in a courtroom kind of protection. But the affirmative defense piece means that you are actually saying, yes, I am guilty of copyright infringement. That's what a fair use defense means. And it's actually something that a lot of people don't know that part. You're admitting it. Yes, I did take your stuff. However, I have one of these list of reasons why I'm allowed to do that, and there's nothing that you, the content owner, can do anything about it. So you'll hear people talk about things like comment and criticism, news broadcasting, archival, education, a lot of those sorts of bits and pieces. Parody is another good one, that are exceptions to copyright infringement, or exceptions under the fair use doctrine in the United States. And so the reason why I wanted to kind of go in and explain some of this background stuff is that, to some extent, all of the different claims that we're dealing with, in a lot of ways, they fall at least partially or entirely underneath that fair use doctrine within copyright law. So, Patty, the claims that you had with Battlefield, they went back and they just kind of claimed everything. Was it music, or was it other things too?
It was literally the gameplay footage, and actually the fact that I was playing Battlefield 3. It was part of a widespread thing that they were doing to, I think most of the channels at the time that were doing that. This was back in, I think Battlefield 3 came out in 2011 or so. And during that time, you saw a lot of companies were trying to kind of figure out how, this is when content creation was getting super big. They were trying to figure out where their stance was on it, and they initially didn't necessarily want to work with content creators or kind of go along with them. So this was some of their answers to doing things like that, is kind of what I found.
Right. So Let's Play is kind of a funny thing as far as a lot of the copyright stuff goes, because it is so nebulous as to whether or not you could make that argument that it actually falls under some kind of commentary and critique, or some sort of transformative thing that you're piecing together. It's really debatable, and a lot of us doing game videos online actually don't rely on fair use now, and specifically talking about Let's Play kind of content. You actually rely on the owner of the game letting you do it in order to do that content, because they're not going to chase after you, right? Because there is a lot of debate on whether you can actually say, me just sitting here and playing a game and being entertaining, or whatever the case, that might be good content to some people. They may enjoy it, but that doesn't mean that it belongs to that person. But then you take the alternate case of something like StarCraft or Dota or something like that, where there's such a high skill element that really what the people are watching is the strategy of the team, and the game doesn't matter as much, right? The game is there as a piece.
Well, that speaks very much to the nature of the transformative nature of video games specifically. They are unique they're a unique entity when it comes to content that might fall under fair use or not, because of how much it is the game, and how much of it is the person playing the game, the decisions they're making, and the commentary that they're providing, and things of that aspect. A lot of times, the reason why Let's Players like Markiplier and Jacksepticeye and PewDiePie are so amazingly popular isn't for the content that they're playing, it's for their personalities and what they bring to the video. So that makes there's an argument there that what they are doing and what they're producing is very much their content, and the content being used, the video game, is more of a backdrop than anything else. And in addition to that, everything else in video games, because it is very transformative, video games are exceptionally unique in that aspect, and how much player agency there is, and how much user agency there is in a video game, how much choice you have. Do I turn left? Do I turn right? Everything makes it a unique experience each time a game is played. And it's that transformative nature that makes it really difficult to define what is fair use and what is not.
Absolutely. So, oh, good gracious. Sorry, I had something happen on another window. So now, in addition to the more nebulous forms of fair use, things like, again, Let's Play is one of those ones that even if we get it at some point, get some kind of court battle that's going to talk about this, there is no guarantee whatsoever that we're going to see a positive outcome for gamers. Now, on the flip side of that, I know that that SidAlpha and PattyJack and myself, we all do varying kinds of editorial content, very, very specific into some of the criticism and industry analysis and that kind of stuff, and using footage to go along with that is on topic to what we're talking about. And that is one of those very, very specific exemptions under fair use. But again, we still have never seen this in an actual courtroom, as far as getting a real proper answer from the legal perspective, which is kind of unfortunate and disappointing at the same time.
Well, eventually it will happen, but a lot of the times, game producers, developers, and everything, they want you playing their game. They do. A lot of legitimate developers want you to play your game and review it online. They want the visibility. They want people to be exposed to it, so people will say, "Hey, this is a really good game," and they go and buy it. It benefits them to have content creators producing that, and that's why, with Nintendo being the most notable exception, AAA industry and everything like that basically leaves content creators on Twitch and YouTube alone, and they don't try and combat fair use because it just makes them look like assholes, and a lot of people are less likely to buy their products.
So how does all of this stuff change how you make videos? We can bandy about fair use and all that, but again, without a courtroom verdict, there's only so much that we can really argue. So at the end of the day, you kind of have to start either taking one for the team and challenging those companies, or you have to change your content so that the claims don't come in.
Well, there's no way to avoid a DMCA from a company like Dentola Studios or Doki and Dallas Review. Those people directly target people for the negative reviews. And there's nothing really that can be done to avoid that, except to make sure that because the exceptions that are listed in fair use are fairly specific, and I should say, to a certain extent specific. They allow for a certain amount of content to be viewed that are pertinent to the topic at hand, and you're allowed to use no more than is necessary. And that itself is a very vague generality, like what is deemed necessary or not necessary. Nobody knows. it's not defined anywhere. The only way to be able to determine what is necessary or unnecessary amount of content would be to go through the courts.
Now, there are ways of getting around content ID, though. For example, I did a news wrap up actually shortly thereafter after with Jim's lawsuit with Digital Homicide. And just for giggles, because I can't remember who it was that suggested it in Discord chat, but they wanted to see me dancing to Chains of Love.
Yeah.
I didn't do the dancing bit, but I did put the song into the video, and I had it at a fairly low volume, and I was still talking throughout the whole piece. And so YouTube wasn't able to match that to my video. They weren't able to look at that and actually take it for their own. So part of the reason why, you know, in a Jim Sterling video, why his get claimed, if he was talking throughout the whole song, he'd be fine. The system wouldn't be capable of picking that out. But because he finishes the video off with, you know, a dance and just the song, it's very obvious to the system what exactly is going on, right?
Mhm.
Even that, it's not a complete guarantee if that happens, because I have had like background songs in my videos, especially older ones and stuff. Like this happened actually recently, one from a few years ago. It got claimed for a specific song, even though I was talking throughout the whole video. It's not like it's not a foolproof plan or anything, and it can kind of backfire a bit. But I think what you need to, what if you're gonna put something like that in a video, the question that needs to be asked is like, why is it there? Is there a reason to have it there? And I would assume that the reason you had it in your video was, again, to test that system, and because you've been vocal about your opinion on him using that song in his videos in the past as well.
A little bit, and that'll lead me into another sort of bridge in the conversation. But I want to talk about the copyright deadlock, so there will be people that are watching this, whether it's live on Twitch or whether it's later on the YouTube channels, who have heard the phrase copyright deadlock, and they know all about Jim Sterling, and basically what he's doing is he's putting multiple different copyrighted material into his video so that they fight with each other over who gets the money. And as soon as you have more than one copyright claim from multiple different sources, the monetization on that video is effectively terminated until something is resolved, right? If you just have one claim, then that one claimant can take the money. If you have multiple, there's no guarantee, there's no way of divvying it up. So Jim will do that, and he'll have, you know, a whole bunch of these different copyright claims on his videos. And I love the man, he's great. But there are young YouTubers out there that are parroting that the copyright deadlock is a good idea. And the only reason it works is because of who Jim is, where his audience comes from, and where his revenue comes from. That's the only reason he can get away with this. It is quite simply the owners of Chains of Love. If they wanted to shut down Jim Sterling, they could do it tomorrow with 3 little forms that they would have to fill out, and they would be totally in the right. Right? He is absolutely within his legal right, following down the fair use kind of path to use video game footage and all of these sorts of things. You can do that, but he has no fair use exception to use the song Chains of Love. And this is so dangerous because maybe he found the one company that is not going to go after him. But all it takes is picking the wrong company, and you can have your channel shut down because you thought you were doing something good. And
yeah,
so that's my worry with that system, right?
it is. It's a very dangerous gamble to take, and it's not one that I would recommend to anybody for them to even try it, specifically for those reasons. Plus, also, you have to remember that if you just decide, well, I'm going to content ID lock all of my videos, then you're not getting any ad revenue on that, and neither is YouTube. And a lot of people will say, well, screw YouTube. But, you know, ad revenue drives this site. It drives the platform. That's how YouTube makes its money. That's how the content creators make their money. And that's why these automatic content IDs are so frustrating, especially for larger YouTubers where, you know, one video getting a content ID on it could cost them hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And it's if nobody's getting the ad revenue, nobody's benefiting. which, is fine for smaller YouTubers, but it can very much turn into a death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah, and that's the big benefit that Jim's got on having such a big Patreon audience, right? I mean, if YouTube shut his channel down, he could make another one, and he still has that following, people following him on Twitter and all of these other sorts of places.
He very much does.
If you just have,
and
if you just have YouTube, then if that goes away, right? Where do you do? You start over, right? You have to begin again, and how much fun is that?
Yeah, and the reason why he does that on those videos is because the Jimquisition videos are Patreon funded. He does not monetize those videos. He just monetizes his Jimpressions and his green light videos and everything like that. But the Jimquisition videos he leaves unmonetized, and then these companies come along, content ID them, and enable monetization. And so in response to that, that's why he came up with the content ID Deadlock.
Yeah. Now, I will say that it is amusing having a content owner fight with itself. So I was talking about the Nintendo claims that I had earlier. Some of them were from Nintendo America, and some of them were from Nintendo Japan. And apparently, they actually have two separate content ID accounts with YouTube. So Nintendo did screw themselves out of that by somehow making me content, copyright deadlock that video unintentionally. I just used a bunch of Nintendo footage from the live stream to talk about that footage. And they locked it down entirely. So that was kind of amusing.
It's always hilarious to see these larger companies do that. Warner Brothers did it too. They issued a DMCA takedown on their own websites through Google+. And in addition to that, they also issued those for Amazon and a few others for showing content involving their movies. And it was actually Amazon selling their movies.
This really throws me because the DMCA contains language that talks about punishment for knowingly wrongly submitting a claim.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a system that is capable of DMCA takedown notices against your own content, that seems to me to be about as close to knowingly submitting wrongful claims as you can possibly get.
It is, very much so. And it's worth noting for a lot of people that YouTube's DMCA takedown system is designed to protect YouTube. It's not designed to protect anyone else. It's not designed to create the original owners of the content or anything. It's to prevent YouTube from getting sued. And the DMCA takedown is entering into a legal process, and filing a false one is perjury. The problem is, in order to get that pushed through for those consequences, you actually have to sue them for filing a false DMCA claim.
Right. And what YouTuber is going to do that?
I will.
Me. We'll tag team it. Lawyer costs. You're taking the majority cost.
I've already spoken to over a dozen attorneys in the past week.
Yeah.
The problem is, the huge problem is, in a lot of these instances, because a lot of these asset flippers and companies like those behind Fur Fun, they're overseas. Dentola Studios is Russian, and Dallas from Dallas Review, he's from Spain. So you actually have to deal with international law. And that's a lot trickier and a hell of a lot more expensive. But I am definitely looking into possibilities there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that we've got people of conscience. Because I want to. I did the same thing when I started getting a couple of claims from Nintendo. I thought, you know what, I need to figure out how much this is going to cost. If they decided they wanted to actually file a DMCA takedown. Right? What is it going to cost for me to fight this? Is it worth it for me to fight it?
Against somebody like Nintendo, it's not. They'll just drag it through court until you run out of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, then you have the reverse problem then as well. Somebody like Dentola Studios, for example, or even, Digital Homicide. I mean, I've done an awful lot of math to try and figure out what I think some of these asset flippers are making. And it's not peanuts, but when it comes down to getting them to pay for attorney fees and all that kind of stuff, these are provisions in the DMCA. If it's a wrongful, claim that they've made, you can go after them for attorney fees and all that wonderful stuff.
Absolutely.
but you're still kind of, trying to squeeze blood from a stone, right? They don't have any money. Now, this Spanish YouTuber guy that did the For Fun thing, well, 4 million something subscribers, he's got some money.
Yeah, which is also, it's part of the solution and part of the problem at the same time, because he does have access to vast amounts of funds. He could drag this through the court system a lot longer than I would be capable of doing. So probably trying to pursue that in court would be a futile attempt. And that's why these companies and these people do it, is because they know no one's going to come back at them because it's not monetarily worth it. Nobody has the funds to be able to do it.
Yeah, and we're seeing another big one that's going on right now, which is the H3H3 copyright issue with Matt Haas.
Yeah, which is costing them $50,000 a month.
Well, now, it does sound like they, as soon as that happened for 1 month, they then switched attorneys, I think. Something along those lines.
God, I hope so.
So it sounds to me like H3H3 is doing what they normally do, which is kind of play up the controversy just a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it is a very, very serious, especially given that they put their video out like I want to say a day or two after Jim's video went up when he was trending on his lawsuit ending. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. There's still a very serious sort of thing, which actually could act as precedent for video games, right? They're talking about a reaction channel where they took video footage from somebody else and they made a video of them making fun of that person. Well, does that sound like anything to anybody else? I mean, you've got video footage that is owned by somebody else, a video game, and your reactions to playing, it's like, this is the same kind of thing. It just happens to be a different genre. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's still very much a fair use battle. The problem is, in order for it to set a legal precedent, it would have to go up to some form of Supreme Court, whether it be a state or a federal Supreme Court ruling. That's what would have to happen for it to set a legal precedent that others could benefit from.
Fair enough. Although they can be referenced outside.
They can be. Mm-hmm. Which a lot of
Just
times
showing
those
that there's
references
something
will
else there.
show a judge basically, here's what this other judge did, to kind of give them some
Yeah.
guidance in cases that are, haven't really been covered too much.
Yeah, and it lets them not have to necessarily take the whole brunt of the decision, right? Because there's multiple that are making the same call.
Right.
That's really what precedent comes down to.
Yeah.
So in your experience, if you were to list, let's say, the top 3 companies that you've had problems with in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I realize that, Dentola did the Dmca Takedown and the For Fun thing and all that. But as far as the frequency as well as the magnitude, let's start with Patty.
Yo.
Pick your worst game companies to deal with on YouTube.
Oh, the worst ones. Honestly, like the majority of ones that I've personally dealt with, especially on the indie side, have all been super great. I've never had a problem with indie developers specifically, but if we're looking at publishers or something like that, definitely EA has, obviously because of the Battlefield stuff, Activision will readily copyright or claim everything anytime I upload any Call of Duty trailers or anything like that. Like if there's any footage of it at all, you can expect that one to be claimed. Other than that, Machinima as well. There's been a lot of claims from them for similar content, like maybe they have the trailer on their website. IGN, again, another offender of that one. But overall, I've never really had a huge problem. It's just these content claims that kind of come in mass every now and then.
Right. Sid?
The worst companies to deal with. Yeah, I do have to note that a lot of people might be getting a negative perception about indie developers from a lot of this, especially on my channel, beans. I've been embroiled in battle constantly over the past few weeks, but it is worth noting just for everyone, because I want to try and get this out as much as I can to people, that by and large, the vast majority of indie devs are fantastic people, and they're wonderful to work with, and they're usually very open and very communicative. And I've enjoyed speaking with a great deal with them. Some of them I still chat with on Steam, even though I've reviewed their games months and months ago. I still keep ties with them because they're just fantastic people. But the most difficult companies to work with, first and foremost, for me, was Nintendo. obviously, and they can rot in hell for all I care. The second would be Activision, and thirdly would be probably EA, simply because of the automated system, and you have to be someone in order for them to really care. You have to like reach a certain size before they'll even actually take a look at things. Oddly enough, I would have added Digital Homicide to that list, but oddly enough, through that whole debacle, and I'm not sure how or why, they left me completely alone.
Same here.
I am like one of the few YouTubers that widely covered their stuff that they just did not touch.
Interesting. If I was to pass my own list, honestly, I agree with two that you guys have mentioned. Nintendo, far and away, is the worst. I mean, Nintendo, just to give you some more background on shenanigans, they're attempted to trademark the Mario coin sound. As ridiculous as that is. Okay, like that is a thing.
I think they actually copyrighted the actual depiction of that gold coin as well.
I wouldn't doubt it. It's that bad. Like they have their own YouTube network that is set up specifically for the purpose of taking this revenue from people. They have thrown claims on me, denied the disputes immediately, let the appeal run out its 30-day, god-awful timer. They are far and away the worst. I would put Rockstar as a second myself. Every piece of trailer footage is claimed, and I haven't had much in the way of manual stuff, but that's, it's a function of the kind of videos that I do. I tend towards trailer footage, but every trailer, Rockstar is pretty awful for that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, Activision is another one that I've dealt with as problems. Not Blizzard so much. There was one claim that I ever had from the Blizzard side, but yeah, Activision for Call of Duty and some of those things for sure. Actually, I've never had any claims that I can think of from EA. I've used FIFA footage, trailer footage, Battlefield stuff, and I've never run into problems with them.
Yeah, so. Trailer stuff I've never been claimed by them. I think, Activision is the only one that's really gone after me for trailer stuff. I don't think I've ever actually used Rockstar footage, so I never experienced that.
Oh, they fought me on both of my Battlefield review videos and a bunch of other stuff. I try to avoid reviewing EA stuff when possible, but that was back when I was a lot smaller than I am now. So,
well, yeah, now you got to start throwing your weight around.
Yeah, a little bit.
So how do you fix it? We all know what the problem is, that developers are kind of shit sometimes. But the real problem is that YouTube built this system to allow this to happen. What makes it better? What fixes this?
Curation, basically, and legal precedence, unfortunately. I think it's one of those things where everything is so nebulous, so up in the air, because no one's tested it. No one's gone through the motions of actually fighting it out, that all of it is so much in the air, not just for content creators, but for games developers as well. They don't know no one knows exactly what is covered under fair use and what's not. As content creators, we throw up the blanket of fair use as our only real defense screen against companies that would try to claim the ad revenue or take the videos down because they don't like them in some form or another. But without clearer definitions on what is fair use and what is not, none of this will ever get solved. And the simple fact that the systems are so automated and it's so impossible to deal with a person directly, that anyone with an email address can go out right now and file a Dmca takedown on anyone. I could turn around and do it to PattyJack right now while we're talking.
Do it. I dare you.
No.
That would be pretty amazing, I gotta say.
We live within half an hour of each other. He could come over here and beat the crap out of me, so I'm definitely not going to do that.
Bro, I work out.
Patty, what do you got for solutions?
I think the precedence is definitely the biggest thing that needs to happen. Other than that, it's like everything is such a big gray area because we talked about like, does Let's Play fall under fair use? And it's like, okay, if it doesn't, what about what I do, which is like first impressions, where I'm playing the game live, but also talking about its features and stuff. Is that the same as Let's Play? Is it different enough? I don't know. So I think that it really does. It is going to take this precedence to be set, saying like, okay, this is what constitutes under this. You need to do this, this, and this. And is that going to happen anytime soon, if at all? I don't know. It is going to take someone and someone out, like two people just going the full way with it and seeing what ends up happening.
God, that's scary, you know? I mean, I love the idea of a proper case hitting the courts, but I am more than a little concerned about the wrong case hitting the courts.
Yeah, that's why, like,
what happens if it's a PewDiePie video? You know, he's become much better in the last while, but what if it's a video of PewDiePie playing some goofy ass game and just being himself and being an over the top goofball?
Yeah,
and what happens if we get the wrong precedent?
that is a very real danger with things like PewDiePie's content, because he seems like an amateur comedian who doesn't know when to quit sometimes. And that could be exceptionally dangerous, but at the same time, it might not necessarily be the worst thing to have the most wealthy YouTuber out there have to battle this, because if anyone could throw an army of lawyers at something, it would be PewDiePie.
It's actually interesting
that's
to bring
fair.
that up too, because this is something I've talked about on my my channel quite a bit, and that's kind of like with the YouTube and the rise of internet media and all that stuff. What we've seen over the last like 5 to 7 years is that people that would normally not have like a soapbox to stand on, all of a sudden do. And it's in stark contrast to traditional media in the past, where say you go to school, you become a journalist. Like I went to college, I did my communications diploma and everything, so like I have training in print media, radio, all this other stuff, and I learned things about the law and everything. So what happens though when you get someone who's exponentially bigger than me, whether it's PewDiePie or whoever, who doesn't have that training, has never dealt with it, and it's interesting to see how they deal with these things as they happen and whether or not they cause more problems.
Absolutely. Just worries me. It worries me, you know, because there are so many good examples, and I found it really funny that Jim's video was one of the YouTube examples that they picked for fair use. Like they picked one of the most caustic people on YouTube, right? He can be absolutely vicious, and that was their example of fair use. I mean, there are so many good examples. It worries me that we'll see a non-commentary Let's Play channel or something like that. I don't know. It's just concerning.
Yeah, it's a very real danger, because a lot of people, a lot of things that a lot of people don't understand, especially in the younger age brackets, the teenagers and people in their very early 20s. They, the YouTube is still a very new thing. This form of content, this form of media delivery is still a very new thing, and the laws just have not caught up to it yet, and they won't for a while. A lot of people have called it, the new Wild West, and they're not wrong in a lot of ways. And a lot of this is still blazing new ground, even though it's been around for a decade or a little more than a decade.
A decade's nothing in comparison to, say, print media.
Yeah, absolutely. Print media and even television media and radio have been around for significantly longer period of time, and they've had a chance to work all of this out. But the medium that we're on now is so drastically different than everything else that none of those other formats, none of the laws for any of those other formats can apply, because it's just so different.
And it's across the entire world too. I mean, you look at every country has their own laws for media journalism and stuff, but even just between the US and Canada, like there's differences between fair use and fair dealing and all this other stuff. So it's something that needs to be sorted out like across the entire world, which is a hugely daunting task.
Which even comes back to the point of, we don't even know in cases like this, like my issue with For Fun, for example, we don't even know whose law takes precedent, the US or Spain's. I don't know. I haven't even found an attorney to be able to give me an answer to that question yet.
Find a country in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, well, I have no idea, right? I mean, because they don't ask you when you're filing for a takedown notice whether you want to file under the DMCA or your local legislation, right? They just ask for all of the information and then they deal with it appropriately.
Yeah, it's
Now,
YouTube is US based, so they adhere to US law, and that's why that DMCA system is in place. Because the DMCA is US law.
Right, absolutely. When you appeal it, though, when you pick what country you're in, it will actually give you different options if you're in the States to talk about the different exemptions under fair use, or it gives you just a general description box if you file under Canada. Just interesting little.
I had no idea.
Aside in how they do their paperwork.
I always file under Canada, so that's interesting.
Yeah. Now, if I was to pick a thing to try and make this whole system better, the one that has been kind of stuck in my mind over the last while is the length of the dispute windows. That's really the big thing that I have as an issue with all of this stuff, is I file a dispute, they deny it immediately, and then I file an appeal, and they can take 30 days to decide whether or not they're going to look at that. Why is their dispute and why is their claim against me immediate, but my action back to them not? And this is a thing that I think YouTube can change quite a bit.
Well, YouTube does that to protect and prevent themselves from getting sued. But the 30-day requirement after that is for people to have time to engage attorneys and things of that nature to get paperwork filed, because the court systems are slow. They take a lot of time. So if you're going to do anything court related, they put that as kind of a general hold to allow people to do that.
Now, the other thing that they can do this on the DMCA side as well. DMCA was the 10 to 14 days. But the DMCA says that the content, when a counter notification has been seen, that the content shall be put up within 10 to 14 business days. They could put it up the same day if they wanted to.
They could.
It doesn't prevent them from that, right? So why is it always in favor of the creator, the quote unquote creator, because that's not necessarily always the case. They get more false claims than they get legitimate ones. You know, why not put some of this onus back on the other company to make sure that they're doing their stuff properly? That's where I would see a lot of benefit, I think, to YouTube video creators myself.
There should be. I think filing a DMCA should be at least more difficult than clicking on a few bubbles, checking a box, and hitting submit. I think that is far too simple, and the repercussions, unfortunately, just aren't there. Like, the only real repercussion right now is if you have a YouTube channel and you file a false DMCA, then YouTube will take action against your channel.
Right. Now, I haven't seen what that action entails. Is it just a kind of like a community guideline strike against that channel, or?
It's not very clear whether they eventually, I don't know if they do it on the first action or subsequent actions, but they will remove your channel. Which is actually most likely why Dallas, for fun, was having his developer Doki file all of the DMCA takedowns so it wouldn't be associated with his channels directly.
Yeah, that makes a good amount of sense. I don't know. This whole thing is just so frustrating, right? You try and make something that is good, and you try and follow the rules, and there are still ways that people can screw with you all the time, and for what? You know, I understand that YouTube needs to be very careful because the whole reason why they're protected is something called safe harbor, right? As long as they follow these different take this down at, within this time kind of rules, they can continue to claim that they're not responsible for any of the content that's on the site. But there is so much more that they could be doing. I mean, Content ID as a thing has nothing to do with the law at all. That's what the DMCA is for. Content ID was just a way of having YouTube go out to all these content creators and say, how about you stop taking all our shit down? Why don't you just monetize it yourself? Right? So they build their own system with their own rules. And that's why they can have a 30-day turnaround time on a Content ID claim, where you can't have that long a time on a DMCA one. There's a legislated required timeline, but they can make up their own timeline on Content ID.
And that's, that's the crux of the matter right there, is they did it so the videos would still be there and they'd still get monetized and YouTube would still get its share. It all comes down to money. YouTube has no incentive whatsoever to change any of this until it starts affecting their bottom line.
Until there's any sort of competition that's worth anything against them or anything like that. I mean, they have a monopoly on videos on the internet. It's a fact. They have no incentive to even look at some of these issues.
Yeah, none whatsoever. They started instituting this program that they were so vastly proud of, where they actually protected Jim Sterling's channel from DMCA takedowns, where they basically provided a shield between him and people doing that. But they were all proud of this system that they were rolling out, and he was going to be their test bed. How long ago was that? How many years ago was that? And they've done nothing with it since.
Where's the system now, right? I mean, because it was nothing more than, let's pick a bunch of videos, have our lawyer go over them and say, we believe these are all fair use. We would, fight for them in a court of law. We're not going to look at the rest of your videos. That's not what we're here for.
It's okay, YouTube. I know I don't matter.
Well, I matter very much to me, and I like to keep on mattering. So YouTube, you're getting a giant middle finger from me.
You matter a ton to me too. This is all we matter. Damn it, absolutely.
See, and this is a part of the reason why content creators and their viewers also band together so tightly whenever these issues happens, because they know YouTube is not going to protect them. No one is going to protect them except each other, and that is why you'll see content creators. That's why you'll see Jim Sterling posted a video just talking about my DMCA takedown. Me, a tiny little channel with 2,000 subscribers at the time that he did that. Because it was the right thing to do, because it was the right thing to raise awareness, to make sure that even though there was nothing he could do to prevent the DMCA takedown or to combat against it, but he could damn sure make sure that those developers that filed that false DMCA takedown would not profit by it. And that's the important thing, to make sure that they don't profit from their actions, that when they do this, they're doing nothing but hurting themselves.
Yeah, I love seeing when that kind of stuff happens. I mean, it was an awful lot of fun to send you the quick message saying congrats on doubling your channel size, and then now look, and you've got an extra 10K over and above what you had at the time. Like, this is just absolutely phenomenal. So, good job on all of that, right?
Oh, I'm not stopping. I plan on getting my silver button by the end of the year. So just watch.
Good goal. Good goal. I like it. So do we have any sort of final comments? I want to go out to Twitch chat and do a little bit of question and answer on the stuff that we've been chatting about. But
yeah, absolutely.
While we let some people maybe get some questions up and running, any final thoughts on the DMCA, fair use, video creation, and YouTube?
Not really too much. I mean, I do want to apologize because I know I tend to talk a lot, and when I get on a roll, I just keep going. And I know I've kind of monopolized this a little bit, and I do apologize for that.
How dare you?
Never forgive you.
Patty.
I think that the only thing is, I talked about this in a video I made late last night, actually. And it was just that the people that would normally do, like any indie developer that's going to throw down like a blatantly fraudulent DMCA claim or anything like that, the majority of the time, it's a knee-jerk reaction, and it's not about the content creator themselves, at least initially. It can get very personal, as we saw with the digital homicide incidents and all that. But when it starts out, the majority of the time, the developer will know that they might have done something wrong, and they want to try to cover it up, and they don't want to take ownership for what they did. So they'll try to pawn it off on someone else. I think it has more to do with them in certain cases than it necessarily does with the content creator or even what happened. They take insult towards themselves before they dish it out, and it's ugly.
Right. It is. Absolutely. So just for giggles, anybody watching, if you have any questions, all three of us have been doing this for a little while, some perhaps longer than others, but we've made many videos. We've had many copyright claims. We've dealt with many disputes, and all kinds of other bits and pieces. So please feel free. If you have any queries or suggestions or things that you want to add to the discussion. I wish there was an easy answer to a lot of this. I really do. I wish that there was some magical solution, but it really comes down to, you know, how you persist, and without getting 3 strikes. So I'm glad to see, Sid, that your first one was removed. I was a little concerned for a moment there.
Yeah, I was very, that first one had actually cycled off before this second one came in, because even having a strike on your channel changes your perception on how you deal with content, especially with because a lot of the videos and news pieces that I do and everything are in regards to asset flippers and the like, to warn people that this isn't really legitimate. They're just trying to make a quick buck at your expense. And I actually have 2 of those right now, but I can't do both of those simultaneously, because if they both issue DMCAs on those videos, then my channel will disappear. And that's something that, you know, I've stressed this constantly, but a lot of people still seem to be not hearing the message. This is very much a 3 strikes and you're out system. You get 3 DMCAs. You don't pass go. You don't collect $200. Your channel gets deleted. All of your videos go away, and they will not be put back up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can only have so many appeals open at any one time as well.
Yep, you can only have I think 3 at once, but that's also the dangerous fact. Nobody wants to start 3 appeals at once, because if they do, and then all 3 of them come back as a full DMCA takedown or something like that, then their channel gets deleted, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Absolutely. So out of chat, the Bidgie asks, "What are you guys wearing?" A leopard print thong and a pointy blue hat.
Man, why are you stealing all my fashion sense?
This is why we avoid the camera, because that way you can't see, right? We could be sitting here in, you know, a bathrobe or towel, or just, you know, doing the show in the nude.
This is how boring I am. I am actually fully clothed. I'm wearing blue jeans and shoes. I actually am wearing, from one of my Firefly loot crates, I'm wearing the Let's Moon 'em t-shirt that has the picture of the Firefly with one of the one of those large cruisers behind it.
Oh, God damn it. Did we get paid by Loot Crate for that?
I hope so.
I don't think so.
What a wasted opportunity.
Absolutely. D-Man990099, should we get as many YouTubers as possible and sue YouTube for failing to protect its users from false claims? Absolutely not.
No.
Because it's not their job. And that's the part that really sucks about this whole thing. It is not YouTube's job to fight false claims. It is their job to take whatever the claim says and do what they're told to do by the DMCA. And then if they get a counterclaim, they're told what to do by the DMCA.
Yep.
This is the thing with monopolies too. At the end of the day, we choose to use YouTube. Like, no matter what's going on, like that's the only option we have because of monopolies. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily, like, that doesn't mean that we should sue them because they're doing things that aren't necessarily with us in mind. It just means we don't have options. Like, what am I going to do? Go to VidMe and try to get like $2 donations on videos every 4 weeks? Like, it's not going to work. So until there's like competition,
Yeah, basically that, and that's it. You know, if you want to do this sort of thing on the internet, you have to go through YouTube, because they're the only business in town for it.
It's unfortunate, but to be fair, they do provide a pretty good service most of the time. It's hard to keep that many servers up and running. Hypergrip, a little question about filing false claims being punishable under law. Yes, it is. However, the police ain't going after them for it. You have to sue them. Yeah,
it's very much actually with the DMCA, it is perjury to file a false claim. And if it is within the United States, the lawsuit will take place in the offended party's state. Like, I live in Idaho. So the false DMCAs, if either of those were US based, then it would fall under Idaho jurisdiction, which carries a prison sentence of between 1 and 14 years. And that 1 year is a minimum. So perjury is not something to be taken lightly. The courts don't take it lightly, but you do have to sue for that to happen.
And we actually had a lawsuit not all that long ago, and I've lost the name, but it was Universal. It was the Prince song. The mother that had her baby was dancing to a Prince song on the radio. And was it the EFF that decided they were going to make an example out of Universal and actually took it to court?
I think so.
I can't remember if that was the group or if it was somebody else, but it was funded from outside, and we actually got something of a verdict that says that, yeah, these companies have to actually genuinely consider fair use before they put a DMCA takedown on somebody's channel or website or anything. So that was nice. Now, whether it actually follows through, I mean, it's really hard to prove that somebody didn't take into account fair use. They could have a really shitty concept of fair use, right? Just ask the guy in the mailroom what he thinks of fair use versus asking the lawyer.
Exactly.
1996 RJ Clark opinion on peer-to-peer distribution like Kodi, torrents, and what.cd. I don't know what.cd and Kodi are. My opinion on torrents is the same opinion that I have on ROMs. I think that all of the ethical debates about the legitimacy of the platform, because it can have a legitimate use, are bunk and garbage because everybody just uses it for piracy. So let's stop pretending it's something else. For the most part.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find a single content creator out there actually willing to support piracy, except for maybe Jim Sterling, who didn't support piracy, but kind did, but didn't, but did, but didn't. It's very much one of those things where a lot of us, and it's not trying to protect our own butts or anything like that. It's very much because when you become a content creator, when you start doing videos and when you start producing these sort of content and you're dealing with video games and when you're dealing with the developers, you start to get a more broader perspective of things. And one of those includes the fact of how the business actually works and how it all runs. And, a lot of times we get provided with review code for games, and in turn we provide some form of content regarding that product. It won't always be positive, but sometimes it is. And they trade that for that visibility that we provide. A lot of other times we purchase those games to be able to review them because we weren't able to get review code or anything like that. But it's that income, the purchasing the product, that actually gives them the money to be able to make these games that we all enjoy. So piracy and things like that takes money away from the developers, and it lessens the amount of income they make, which means later games we get might not be as good.
So what he's saying is don't use ad block ever.
Don't use ad block ever.
We get our own money.
RJ Clark did clarify to talk about peer-to-peer as a video platform, and it runs the same problem, right? Is that as soon as you decentralize the media source, you end up with completely rampant copyright infringement.
Yeah.
Right? And
plus, on top of that,
that destroys the income of the content creators that created the stuff that we all love to use to make our content with.
Yeah. Plus, on top of that, there's also the security of your own system. Peer-to-peer networks are rife with viruses and hack intrusions and things of that nature for people trying to garner personalized information. And it's not safe.
What else have we got? JC Peterson, one change that you think would make the whole process better, and I would go back to the reducing the timelines. I think that if a content owner, quote unquote, can take down my content with a snap of the fingers, because of the DMCA takedown, I should be able to put it up with the same thing. We're both making the same legal claim that is defensible, or is an actual claim that will show up in a courtroom if a lawsuit happens. I think it should be immediate. I don't think that there needs to be a big, long turnaround time.
Yeah, I think very much being able to file a counterclaim and put the video back up should be something that YouTube would allow, because we are basically signing into legal documentation stating we believe this is fair use or not this person's content. They have no right to it. Put it back up. I will accept the consequences. And then we can continue on. If they want to sue me, they can sue me. And YouTube and us can continue to earn ad revenue, or YouTube can put a hold on that revenue until the claim either cycles off or anything like that. That would be fine. But I don't see the requirement for pulling the video. Well, I suppose I kind of could under some circumstances. I take that back. But if speaking purely from a content creator basis, when you're dealing with fair use content, the ability to give them a giant middle finger and put it back up would be useful.
It would feel good.
Oh, yeah.
Dharma92 asks, cake or pie?
Pie.
Pie.
Really?
Cake is gross. Okay. I've had more bad cakes than I've had bad pies.
Yes.
That's because there's more kinds of cakes than there are kinds of
I
pies.
disagree with that. Wholeheartedly.
It's like the old line that
if we include
80% of accidents happen within 20 minutes of your home. Well, that's because 80% of driving happens within 20 minutes of your home.
If you include pizza pies, end of discussion.
Pizza pies.
Boom. Lawyered.
Oh, what else have we got? Thoughts on DRM from Makona 512. Thoughts on DRM which rely on a remote server. What happens to your old games when the DRM server is no longer around? And do you violate the DMCA by continuing to use it? This is a much longer discussion.
It is. We could probably have a whole nother hour just on that, I think.
The DMCA does have pieces that talk about circumvention of DRM, and it bleeds into a big discussion on emulators and ROMs, and it turns into a real mess because there's a lot of stuff that is okay, a lot of stuff that isn't okay, and the majority of stuff that is kind of middle of the road on both of those things.
Yeah, I would actually have to go do some more studying on that, as I'm pretty damn well versed now in fair use in regards to DMCA, thanks to recent weeks. But DRM in relation to DMCA, I would need to do some studying on.
Okay, Draco Ranger, would the EFF be a potential group to contact about trying to clarify the DMCA system, or potentially help bring in a YouTube Rosa Parks to the appropriate level? I think they're already doing that. I mean, that's really the EFF has been all over this, and the problem is that legal change takes a long time, and I think with the current administration in the States, getting rid of the DMCA is probably not going to happen. I think we're going to see the reverse happen if anything does.
Yeah, it's very much anything involving any form of governmental regulation moves at about half the speed of smell. So I don't think we'll see any firm guidelines as far as that goes for at least another several years.
We're still super young in everything too. I mean, we touched on it earlier. Like, it's been 10 years since this became first a big thing. So we're gonna see a lot more stuff happen over the next 15 years or so, even beyond that, because it took all these other mediums even longer to get any precedent sorted out.
Yeah, absolutely. The last question, I skipped it and I figured we'll go back to it real quick from Bidgie again. Are the three of us going to do any more collaborative content in the future? I don't know. What do you think?
No, I hate these guys.
That's fine.
Right on. Question answered.
Absolutely. I think I would enjoy that. I know myself and PattyJack had at least considered at one point in time doing a more formalized podcast, but that never ended up coming to fruition, mostly because of my bandwidth limitations.
It takes a lot of work, right? I mean, it's a lot of hours put in beforehand, and
so basically for something like that, I would have to have somebody else would have to be the primary on it, unfortunately. And I like being the big boss guy because I'm just an asshole like that. But I wouldn't mind it.
That's fine. I like putting in the least amount of effort possible, so This is a dream team.
Yeah.
Jesus. I have no issues with it. I think that's probably something that we could make happen. I am the worst where it comes to working with other people. Definitely a solo act. I think I've done 2 collabs in my entire YouTube career in 5 years. So
Yeah,
probably a good idea to change that.
This is the third one, and the second one was actually with PattyJack. So
Nice.
yeah, boy.
Nice.
See, I would offer it's just that as it stands, both of your channels are way larger than mine consistently, so it wouldn't make sense for me to take the reins on that.
yeah, but also look at well, to take the reins, I could kind of see that. But look at the co-optional podcast. Look at the disparity in size between Total Biscuits and Jesse Cox's and Dodgers channels.
Yeah, but TB's hosting that, and he's the biggest.
Yeah. Still,
yeah, ideas
being
are
the-
as
having the
important,
largest
right?
numbers shouldn't dictate who was the one.
No, that
Right,
dictates
taking the
everything.
reins.
It dictates how I feel
No,
about
it doesn't.
myself on a daily basis.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. You don't know me.
God damn it, Patty. Okay, we're coming up on the end, I think here. Last couple of little bits of questions. Most difficult aspect of producing content on YouTube. So like hardware editing, dealing with, the hateful comments that make you want to go to bed and cry.
Oh, that's easy.
That kind of stuff.
Recording things. That is always an issue because half the time something goes wrong. Your audio isn't right. It doesn't split properly. You can get like crappy encoded videos. If it can go wrong with your recording software, it will. And half the time, nothing will work.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still dealing with sound in this room. I actually can't turn the gain up too much on my microphone because of the sound in this room.
Yeah.
And so I actually have to have my microphone probably about 100 times closer to my mouth than it should be.
Mhm.
And so people can pick up my breathing and things like that. And it's horrible and it's horrendous and it's unprofessional and I hate it. I'm working on fixing that. But, audio and visual quality and everything like that is always a pain. And editing takes forever. I mean, you see,
we need to get you set up with a noise gate.
I've got a reflection filter and some other sound dampening material on the way right now. It's already been shipped, so that will hopefully help clarify things, because I have this beautiful $400 microphone sitting over here that I can't use yet, because that thing can I said it to a bunch of people. That damn thing can pick up a gnat fart at 50 paces. It is that it can pick up so much. It's a SE2200A 2C cardioid.
It's got a lot of numbers and letters. Sounds like it's good.
And then I got a Focusrite Scarlett 2i4 audio relay. So
nice.
Right around $550 worth of audio equipment to those 2 pieces, and I can't use it because it just picks up too much.
Ouch.
See, like I could sit here and say that editing is like the most difficult part. I mean, it's the part that if I'm making any sort of real video, I spend the most time on. But really, I have control over that. It's the other stuff beforehand that you don't always have control over. It's like, okay, this game doesn't work with DX story, doesn't work with Shadowplay or Fraps or something. That's just, ugh.
Yeah, and I hate, because I use OBS for a lot of my games, and there's a lot of games on Steam that use Unreal 4, but they're still in early access and they still have bugs and everything. So the video output is, it has this weird grainy pink film over it, and it's really strange. And so I have to use Real Play or something like that, which changes the audio quality. I mean, it raises the pitch and alters it, and it makes me sound
the worst thing that can possibly happen, and this happens to me once a week, I swear, is when I record an entire video and then discover my audio was off. And because I use Shadowplay that doesn't allow for splitting, then that entire video is down the drain. And if it's a first impressions video, well, there goes my first impressions.
Yeah,
I'll miss you.
Yeah, I always record everything in Adobe Audition, regardless of what my video capture is doing. It's how I've had to do it because of those problems, really.
I did that for a while. I think I've gotten lazy. I should start again.
Yeah, it should. I actually need to get more storage. 4 terabytes is not cutting it by this point.
Yeah, it gets. Yeah, you end up going through an awful lot. I'm sitting on a few full terabytes myself. I think we're at the end. So let's go through a little bit of self flagellation. Tell me about your channel, what you got coming up over the next week or two. We'll start with PattyJack.
Oh God, what do I have coming up? I don't know what I'm doing later today.
And where people can find you. And
Yeah,
come on,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
doing
yeah,
like
yeah.
a video a day, man.
I'm doing at least a video a day. I don't plan them out ever. Yeah, so over on my channel, I do a lot of first impression stuff. I cover a lot of Elder Scrolls things as well. I do lore videos over there. And then if someone sends me like a game code, I do a first impressions or something like that. So you can go find me over there at youtube.com/IAmPattyJack. Also have a VidMe account as well if you like using that site. Same thing, IAmPattyJack. And Twitter. Guess what that is? It's the same thing. It's IAmPattyJack. Also have a Discord server if you can't get enough. If you can't get enough of Tarmax and you need another one, then mine's there too. You can get the link to that in the description to every video I upload. So that's a thing you can go do. And yeah, as regards for stuff I'm working on, Mondays and Fridays, that's the only schedule I have. Mondays is a lore video for the Elder Scrolls. I cover really weird things in there, so it could be anything from Bosmer cannibals to were crocodiles to anything. And then Fridays are an Elder Scrolls 6 topic of some sort where people yell at me because they don't agree with my opinion.
Sid, you're up.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. And especially thanks to these guys for having me on here. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed being able to see a lot of people in chat. That was fantastic. And it was good for me to just sit back and just not deal with all of the stresses on the channel right now, because, I spent a lot of time over the past few days talking about DMCA, and a lot of it is video editing. It's very intense and dealing with a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So being able to just sit back, kick back with a few people and just chat was really cathartic for me, and I do appreciate it. But if you want to check out more of my content, you can go to youtube.com/SidAlpha. I do video game news, reviews, first impressions, and a lot of DMCA stuff recently. And so there's been a lot of long speeches on my channel over the past few days that apparently people seem to really enjoy. They like my voice for some reason. But in addition to that, I am on Twitter and Reddit as the same name. I actually do have a subreddit for anyone interested in that. And I'm also on Facebook at I Am SidAlpha, because somebody took the SidAlpha name, that bastard. He won't let me have it.
Dude, same story.
So yeah, that's all I got. Later on today, actually, as soon as we finish here, I have a video that I'll be uploading discussing Jim Sterling getting a trademark infringement. So that's a new thing. And I've got a few videos for games that I need to get out that I'm going to be cranking through this weekend as much as possible. So stay tuned for all that, because I'm trying to get back to business as usual.
Yeah, I hope we've whet the interest a little bit in some people on some of the copyright stuff. So I look forward to seeing the trademark video. My name is Tarmack. Thank you very much for stopping by our wonderful little chat here today. You can find me at the GnomeCast on YouTube, at GnomeCast on Twitter. Tarmack Gaming, please follow me here. I do Wednesday streams, Wednesday nights. And that's what I've got for you, I think. Upcoming stuff on the channel. I do a news wrap-up every Sunday, so that'll be up tomorrow, 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We also have the Feature Creep series, which is an editorial, and I've got one coming up next week that'll talk about emulators and ROMs. So again, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a lovely afternoon.